Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to topic 14. In this topic, I'm going to be explaining to you guys how do you use the VRay Geometry. Now let's get straight to it. So as you guys can see, we have a couple of different things over here. So we have the infinite plane, we have the export and import proxy, we have the fur, as well as we have the mesh clipper. So let's see what all these things basically let us do. Now as you guys can see over here, I'm going to basically create a space, something like this. Take an offset over here, kind of just join this line over here, or let's just join this line over here as well as this line over here, and just erase, just kind of pick this up first of all like that. All right, so that's something I'm going to do, and I'm actually going to make this one into a group, so I can actually just pick this up, something like that, and we've got something different like this. Now I'm going to actually open up something called as the sandbox. So I don't know how many of y'all have used the sandbox, but I'm actually going to use the sandbox to create a particular shape, and we are actually going to use that shape to create a geometry. So we're going to add a geometry to that particular shape. Now as you guys can see, I'll just scroll down and I'll switch on the sandbox and quickly just give this a close, and you'll automatically see the sandbox has come up over here. Now let me show you guys what I'm going to do with this sandbox. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select the second one over here, which is from scratch, this one right here. And what that's going to let me do is it's basically going to let me create a plane, and that plane is going to be something like this. So I can actually go ahead and create a plane, something like this. And once I'm actually done with this, I can simply explode this, and I can really use the smooth option over here and just change its radius to 2, and actually kind of give this a very organic shape. So maybe I want to increase the radius, something like this, and I can actually use this now to actually create a very organic shape, something like this. So the reason I'm creating this because I want to give it fabric. So I'm actually going to go ahead and select fabrics and give it a very bluish tone fabric like this, and make this as well into a group. Let me just simply go ahead and place this over here, so you guys can see that's something what I have basically created, just something like that. Now the next thing over here, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create just another box, let's say a little detailed out box, something like this. Alright, and I'll just create a very basic pattern over here. So remember, this is just because I want to explain a couple of geometry things to you is why I'm actually doing all of this, but you guys can of course create anything on your own. Let me just go ahead and simply create a nice something over here, just like that. Yeah, I think that seems quite fair enough. And we can just erase off the unwanted lines like that. Just do something like that over here. And you can see how I've actually created this surface. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to actually just give it a nice follow me. So selecting the curve first of all, then follow me, and just clicking on this, we'll actually get something which looks something like this. And what I want you guys to understand is why I'm doing this also is because I'm trying to create as much detail as I can in this particular thing, because the more detail you make a thing, the more it becomes heavier. So if you guys have noticed, a lot of times when you bring out a lot of objects from the 3D warehouse, they're very detailed. They are 80 MB, 60 MB, 50 MB, and even just small things are very detailed, but those details look really good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into a group, and this eventually will become our proxy. Alright, so I'll be explaining to you guys what that proxy is as well. And let me just scale that down like this, and let me just keep this outside for now, just over here, before I show you guys what proxy is. And this is basically about it. So I have this 1, 2, and I have this entire room created over here. The front wall of this room is basically going to be given a mesh clipper. You can see that. this entire object is going to actually be said to export. So you can see export proxy. Now when I click on export proxy, you can see I'm just going to save that anywhere I want over here. So let me just quickly go ahead and save it over here. Can actually just go ahead and save this over here, and you can see, do you want to replace it with the selection of the proxy, and you say yes, and that's basically what happens. And you can see how this entire this change looks. Now what this basically does is it kind of makes sure that you can copy and use this particular object, but it reduces the size of this object. It becomes very, very, very simple to use. Now let me just explain to you what that means is, guys, if I have, let's say, multiple copies of this object, it's going to start to become very, very heavy for us to use. You guys can see that, right? It starts to get extremely heavy. So what we usually do is we actually select this and export this as a proxy, and you can see we've already exported this as a proxy. So I can again export this as another proxy. Let me just rename this now as 1 and export this over here, and you can see this turns into a proxy. Now it looks a little bit different, the materials are a little different, but it gives a much more ease for us to use. So you can simply copy it, let's say just around 20 times, and we can even copy this side 20 times, and actually the file is not going to be that very heavy. It's going to actually be, you can see with so many different objects, it should actually be very heavy, but it's not. It's quite simple. You can still see how we can very easily move around, and things are quite simple for us. And what you can do is, because you have created a proxy, now you can actually import that proxy wherever you like. You can see I can import it over here, and I can bring it back over here. That's basically how you guys are going to use the import and export proxy. Remember, make all the heavy objects, which are groups or components, make them into proxies so that it does not affect your model, or it does not make it very heavy. And remember, in the render, this proxy is going to be seen exactly the way it is supposed to be seen. So that's basically about how you guys are going to use the proxy. Now the next thing over here is I'm going to select this curve, and I'm actually going to add fur on top of it, and we'll be understanding the fur in the real time later. And the last thing over here is this infinite plane. So I'm actually going to add this infinite plane over here, and I'm going to show you guys what all these mean in the render settings, and we'll be learning about the adjustments as well in that topic. So before that, let me just go back here. You can see 1, untitled. These both are your proxies. Apart from that, you have the fur, which we have added. You have the infinite plane, which is this, as well as you have the mesh clipper. And I'm going to be introducing you guys to each of these things in the next topic, and we're even going to be seeing how the rendering takes place and how it affects the whole scene. So I'll see you guys in the next topic. Take care.